Right, so welcome everybody. I'm really delighted today to have Chris Plourde on as my guest, and Chris is a conscious performance coach, which we are going to find out all about. I know everybody will be going, what is that? And we'll dig into the depths of that so you'll understand. In his own words, Chris's goal is to help individuals and organisations gain clarity and work towards what they want in life, to create new habits and get into massive action by unleashing the greatness that is already there and owning their unique stories. Impressively, Chris has worked with and coached at well-known companies such as Walt Disney, Xerox, Lululemon, and Twitter. So I'm really excited to have you along, Chris. I'd love to get into, I guess, what is your origin story? You know, why and how did you get to be where you are right now? You know, did you dream of being a conscious performance coach as a boy? Yeah, it would just be really good to hear the background, if that's okay with you to share whatever you'd like to.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me, first of all. Yeah, no, definitely did not dream of becoming a coach. You know, I feel I grew up on the East Coast. I'm in Los Angeles now. And I had an upbringing of a programming coming from parents, mentors, uncles, that if you get a great job with good benefits, you're going to be happy working for, you know, a corporation or whatever the case may be. So my pursuit was, once I found that in college, was I'm going to get a business degree. I'm going to work for different companies, such, you know, that have a good reputation. And when I get in there, I'm going to climb my way up the top and I'm going to be happy. Mm-hmm. Well, working for a variety of companies that gave me a lot of understanding of myself. And I say that because I got into these quote unquote great companies, and they were, and they are, but what was missing was my sense of self, was my fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And even though I was doing what I thought I needed to do, it wasn't what my soul really wanted to do. Yeah. And so it was based upon that old programming that came in of someone else's idea of success. And so when I did that after about a year or so, it was like, no, this is what you want to do. This is what you want to coach people, serve people. And it was always there because I started in the fitness industry. Mm-hmm. And it was working with individuals, helping them meet their goals. And eventually I worked for some companies, being a presenter for various fitness companies and traveling around the world and certifying thousands of instructors. And that was great. And then eventually it was the depth. I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to find out what really made people tick. And so I started creating workshops and getting into the mind gym of it all, if you would, lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. And so that's where everything kind of developed to. And eventually it became this, how do we use performance like you would in athletics or sport or whatever, and use that same mentality in our lives, in business, in performing, in our personal relationships, in our finances, in our, you know, athletics, whatever. They have the same philosophy, moving towards what you want, fall in love with the journey. Yes, cross that finish line, but also love it along the way. So that's kind of the long and the short of it, of how it started.
And so did you do other education other than your business degree once you realized that you wanted to do more coaching style work?
So there was a lot of course, there was a lot of self-development within the fitness and athletics and diving into kind of the information world. So I did a lot of that on my own and pursued different courses and, you know, year-long courses and things that would better myself. Mm-hmm. I just recently finished a positive intelligence course after about a year. It was on mental fitness and the neuroplasticity of changing from the left to the right brain. So there's always, I think as coaches, we're always digging into things that excite us that we can share with our clients. Yeah. But this is an opportunity to, work on ourselves and then pass that on to our clients. It's a really unique profession.
Wonderful. And I noticed in the notes that I had on you that growing up, you did have an alcoholic father, and that did just jump out at me. And I just wondered, apart from what you've already said about, I guess, the male role models in your life, you know, giving you that impression that getting into a good company and a good job equals, you know, life, happiness and success. What other, you know, was there any particular impacts that influence of your father being like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. You know, I think a lot of us have, whether it's an alcoholic parent or uncle or someone who isn't showing up in the way that you think they should have shown up. And my journey with that and him being an alcoholic was at first kind of recognizing and accepting it, you know, but at the same time realizing that he's a good man. Like, he's a great man. Like, I love who I am today, and I wouldn't have changed anything about that with either of my parents. But what I've come to terms with, they did the best job with the tools that were taught to them. Yeah. They did the best job with the tools that were taught to them. And so when I was able to really truly understand that and grasp that and go, you know what, you chose them. There was a reason why you went on this journey as them as your parents. And you were able to, I was able to diffuse the trigger of when he drank, right? Because we've tried everything, right? He's gone some time without drinking and he's still here with us. Great man, awesome heart, like just a fun guy. But he had his stuff that he went through in life, you know, losing a mother when he was a teenager, losing my sister when we were young, you know? And so he's had these really hard things that he's had to deal with, but nobody taught him how to emotionally deal with the things that are going on inside him. Yeah. Right. And that's one thing I think that a lot of us, and especially coaches and therapists and people that love working with people, is we know that when they're ready to make that move, when they're ready to step into it on their own, then that's their decision. But we can't want it more for them than they want it for themselves. Yeah. And we can be there when they're ready to step in and love them and have compassion for them the whole time. Yeah. And that's what I had to, that was my lesson that I needed to learn. Yeah. Is being able to accept people for where they are and not judge them.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And yeah, because I have so many people who they know exactly what they need to do to improve their health and well-being. And I'm not really telling them anything they don't know, but it's a case of until they're ready to do those things, it's not going to happen. Until it's enough of a priority for them, then it's not going to happen. So yeah, that's really true. Yeah. So, all right. So I know that you bringing that up about your dad and, you know, facing his own stuff. I know I want to talk to you about this concept of the modern masculine man. But before we do that, I think we should just get it out. What is conscious performance coaching? I guess if you can give some examples of people that you've helped and the different ways and, you know, like how it kind of works in a session or a program, whatever it is.
Great. So, you know, performance, I'll break it down. Performance is, you know, what we think when we first think of performance, we think of an athlete, right? And I mentioned this a little earlier, and them being the best physically they can be, right? But what it really comes down to is that emotional fitness, is understanding what's coming through you and in you is you, and loving that aspect of it. And not pushing it down, but accepting it for what it is. Taking those different things, situations that happen for you in life, and extracting those gifts that are there. we all have them. Do we choose to look at them? When we went through those hard times, what were those lessons that we learned, right? As opposed to being victimized by those situations, those 4 or 5 or 6 things, major things that we went through as kids or in our 20s or whatever the case may be, that we had to form a certain mentality or certain way to live in life. And we make certain decisions because we don't want to go back to that feeling. So what I do as a coach is try to reframe or disrupt those old patterns consciously by giving different tools, by creating new habits, by allowing ourselves just to kind of embrace where we're at, and then going forth and really making a massive action plan to go ahead. And so you asked for, an example. I'll give you one. I had a lady who worked for a major company here in the States, a doctor who was working as an executive and so on and so forth. And she came to me because she was having these anxiety bouts and eating bouts, and she wasn't sure. She needed to change some habits that were going on in her life. And so after working for about, a year or so, I generally work with people for about a year or 2 years, sometimes longer. What we realized is those habits that she was moving into, whether she was eating or whatever the case may be, wasn't about the food. It was about what the lack of fulfillment she was getting in her job. It was seeing that the people around her were operating from fear-based and recognizing that she didn't have to do that. Right? It wasn't just about surviving in her job. It was about thriving and creating a purpose and creating an action plan for her. Because I think a lot of people get into companies and they're like, well, I'm going to just go by their mission and I'm going to do what they do. And I'm going to check the boxes on my job, on my list, and then go to the weekend. And so what we got her to realize is taking ownership for where she was at, is seeing some of those things and reframing those things that happened to her in her life and realize that they were for her. And before you know it, without even shifting it, she got promoted within the year to the chief medical officer of this company. Right. So when I say performance, that's what she was able to come from, a different high vibrational state, and then get promoted into this really high position, which the company has never had a female in that position before.
Great.
So she's now thriving and doing amazing. And it was all because she had an opportunity to look at all the things that she wasn't looking at. And instead of operating from a left brain fear place, she's now operating from a creative space within the right brain.
Can you go into any more detail about, over that year's journey or whatever it is, with that client or clients in general? What are you actually doing with them in the sessions? What are you working through? How does it actually work on a practical day-to-day level in sessions?
Yeah, well, generally what we're doing is we're establishing, where do you want to be in a year or two?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just about, I am here. I am creating some concrete goals, but also ethereal goals. And what I mean by ethereal is, how do you want to feel when you wake up on Monday morning, right? Yes, we can go after the amount of money you want to make, or the house you want to live in, or the area you want to live. That's fine. Or the kids you want to, birth, or whatever. But I think it all comes down to an emotion, because success is what most people go after, right? And they think they have an idea of what success is until they get to success, that idea, and they have all the things that they put down on paper. But then you ask, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? So I ask all my clients on a scale of 1 to 10, how fulfilled are you in your life right now? And when they're answering 5, 6, well, I go, how much of that of you is your kids getting, is your job getting, is your spouse getting? And they're like, oh, wait a minute. So they're getting less than that 5 or 6 because you're not operating at that high level. Well, true abundance is that there is an overflow, right? There's enough for everybody, that mentality, that belief of it. And when you can start putting those things into play and take care of yourself and love yourself for who you are and what you are, and everybody is worthy right now. No one's broken. We just have to reframe certain things that happen. Then we're able to raise that cup, that vibration a little higher. So we're operating at a 10. Now we're operating at on a consistent basis. And that's when life really starts to get fun. Right. But it takes work to get there. You know, people don't like change. Habits are getting new habits meet with resistance, which people are like, well, that's too hard. Yes, it's too hard, but so is getting fit, you know, physically fit. You know, when we're going to the gym, you need resistance to get fit. When we're changing our lives, resistance shows up. We need resistance to get to that next place, that climb that next mountain in our life.
Yeah.
And so meeting that and understanding that is where I think a lot of people can learn to dance as opposed to really fight things that show up in their lives.
Love that. Yeah, I mean, I think people forget that our ancient brain, you know, where we have evolved from, is frightened of change. And so, yes, it is really hard work. We've got to work against thousands and millions of years of, you know, human evolution to get ourselves to change things.
Yes.
Yeah. So are you mainly working with people? So it's, you know, like it's a sit down, we talk through things, you get them to do certain exercises, or?
Yep. I'll give them a whole bunch of tools and different gamuts that they can follow. Some of them work, some of them don't. You know, there's meditation, there's breath work, there's journaling, there's a new exercise routine, there's, you know, getting into action and making those phone calls on a daily basis. It's creating a plan, a strategy, right? Because without that strategy of where we're going, people start to flail. And then it becomes like a therapy session. And I think therapy is important, absolutely. But my job as a coach is to get the acceptance of where they are right now, know that we have a vision, right, where we're going, and then create that action steps to get there. It doesn't mean we're not going to touch on the past. We're going to hit those moments and we're going to look at those things that have programmed us and then go, does this programming still serve us right now? And if it doesn't, then we need to shift it. Because it's to the point where I like to say, if you always do what you always done, you're always going to get what you always got.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can look at that and go, all right, I'm willing to work with this, but you're going to be a stronger individual, stronger man, a stronger woman when you get out of this. You're going to be so much more powerful. I mean, that's what life is growing, is getting stronger, is unleashing that purpose that already exists within you. Right. And that's what a lot of people have a hard time seeing on their own. So yes, I work with individuals, but I also work with the organizations. You know, companies will have me come in and work with their employees, or different groups will have me come in, and we need to be more connected. And how can we do that? And it's about taking off the masks and the layers that we've put on, and let's get real. Let's talk about those things that really we're holding in and we're not sharing. Because I'm all about authenticity. And I think that's one of the authenticity and vulnerability, I think, is what's missing in leadership today. Yeah. And so when I get to work with CEOs and you know, I just got back from Mexico, worked with 50 CEOs they all have their own different companies, and they needed to get more connected as a group. And so we were able to pull back take off those masks and those layers and really get vulnerable and shed some tears and talk about the things that we normally don't talk about. And hopefully they're able to give that same vulnerability, not weakness, by the way, because it takes courage to get vulnerable and own your feelings, not be victimized by them, own them. Yeah. And that's where they're going to get the best, I feel, out of their teams, out of their employees, is when they're leading from a heart space, not a head space, not from a checklist, but from a really powerful, you know, essence within them. Yeah. And that's where you're going to see true change, and you're going to start to empower the people around you. It's because you're stepping into something that you always should have been in, but for some reason somebody told you it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
We all know. We just have to trust it and step into it.
Yeah. And I also read that you say that you believe freedom is an inside job. So that's really, I guess, what you're talking about there. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd say about that?
It's all about looking at those scary little monsters that wake us up at 3, 4 in the morning, right? The ones that come to us and they kind of, you're lying there with your eyes wide awake, whether it's, you know, that financial, hindrance, or that thing that you haven't dealt with, that relationship that was there that you really never really reconciled, those things that you're not talking about, those secrets or that shame or that guilt that you're holding on to. And it's being able to give that light, right? It's being able to give it a sense of, okay, you're there, I see you. But in the middle of that is where I think the joy and the freedom lies. It's looking at that scary monster and knowing that there's a perception that you're creating and you're making up in your mind that it is just this awful thing that's going to kill you. And it's actually not. It's hard to look at it, but the example or the metaphor I like to give is once you look at it and you go into it, that monster actually turns into a little teddy bear. It just wants to be seen. It wants to be held. It's a part of you. And I think that's what self-love is looking at all your pieces, all your parts, and going, this is me. This is what I need to go through. It's owning the light and the shadow, right? And going, this is what life is. Yeah. Is it hard? Yeah. Is it worth it? No doubt. You know, it's so worth it. But being able to hold that, being able to look at that, you know, and say, this happened for me, and I'm going to see the best I can. I'm going to extract those gifts from it. So,
yeah, I love that, you know, reframing, even just little things in your everyday, from, you know, I have to do this to I get to do this. Like you're saying, it's not, you know, happening to me, it's happening for me. Just
that's right.
Yeah, the language that we use around challenges is so important, isn't it?
Right. That's everything. You know, like how we talk to ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, we literally get to bring that left brain scarcity survival way of doing things, which is how the judge that shows up, right? And you can define that in controller, hyperachiever, victim, like all these different judges, saboteurs that screw with us, and for some drive them forward, right? And get them a level of success. But research shows if we can literally reprogram that and catch that and get present with ourselves when that is happening, we can move into that sage-like place. We can move into that compassionate place, that place of, you know, like I said with my father, you know, yes, was early in my teenage years, was I upset? Did I want to shift? Did I want to change? Yes. But when I realized that I could meet him with compassion, I could see him, his little boy, right? Because I was able to look at my little boy and have compassion with who I am and who I was, then I could see him for who he is. And I think that's where it's missing, is we got to look at ourselves first. So when we talk about freedom, that's where the freedom lies, is looking at ourselves. So for me, being a really sensitive kid, right, and thinking there was something wrong with me because I'd cry all the time, and then actually getting therapy because I needed to fix this because I was broken, right? Because I grew up on the East Coast in a really tough town and crying wasn't an option. And I know some of your listeners are like, yeah, no, you got to be a man. Well, I think men are missing the emotion. Some men are missing the emotional component of it, right? It's not about standing in and burying your feelings, because if you bury those feelings and you're holding them in, no matter how strong you are, it's going to disrupt and disease you in some way, shape, or form, right? So it's a matter of allowing yourself in the right kind of space to feel. And so I did that. I built my manliness up, so to speak, and became this hammer and athlete, and didn't get compassion. Anytime something went wrong, I'd stand right back up and, beat up the next opponent, so to speak, that was in front of me, whether that was a job or a person or a situation. And it wasn't until I felt myself not being happy and fulfilled in my late 20s, 30s, that I was like, something's got to change here. And what's missing? And that's when I found men's organizations and teams. And this wasn't about a new agey type of thing. It was about, no, let's get real, let's get truthful. And it was a safe space to be, to own where you're at in your life, to look in the mirror and say, this needs to change. This isn't working for me anymore. And I got to feel these feelings and move to the next level. And so when I realized that was me and I was a hammer, I wanted to look at that little piece of me that wasn't seen, that wasn't held. And when I could see that little boy that wasn't there, that decided to become something, an idea of something that he didn't necessarily know, he just thought by looking around him, I'm going to be that. And that's what I created. Again, other people's perceptions, other people's ideas put onto me. I went in that direction. And then it's about taking that programming when you finally find it, and then taking off the layers and taking off the masks and saying, no, this is who I am. This is the authentic person that I want to be and live. And that's what I want to pass on to my children as well.
Yeah. Do you have boys or girls or both?
I have a boy and a girl, 15-year-old boy, 9-year-old girl.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, okay. So nice point to go into this question of what is the modern masculine man. I mean, I'm sure he's those things that you've talked about, that you need to be looking at the little boy within the man. Yeah. But yeah, how can you tell us more about that and sort of the work that you do with men's groups? And I guess I'm really, you saying, well, like how you were, that wasn't working for you. And I think the whole thing is, it's not working for society. It's not working for the world, that we have this culture of really toxic masculinity as the main way of being as a man. How can we get more men interested in doing this kind of work and realizing as well? That's something else that I'm really curious to get your thoughts on.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I think men have to get really, really real. And some women, by the way, they have to get really real with where they're at right now and be honest with themselves. Like, look in the mirror and go, are you happy with the man that you are today? Are you satisfied? Are you living from a fearful place and just covering it up so the rest of the world can not see who you are? Or are you truly happy? Are you fulfilled? What is your cup like right now? And then say, if it's not, being okay with that, like accepting it first. Acceptance is the hardest part in order to change. So once you accept that and you say, all right, do I want to go on for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years like this? Or do I want to make a shift? And then that you get to not do it yourself, right? Because that's what most of us get in trouble with. I know I was that was me. I wanted to do it all on my own and not ask for help, but ask for help, right? When I finally said, I want to be a better father, a better husband. And I saw some of the men in my life that were going to these circles, these men's circles. And I finally went along and I was just like, what is this? These men are really screwed up. Like, they're talking about all the problems they have in their life. Do I want to be in this? And it wasn't about, in my naive young self was like, not understanding compassion at the time, was like, no, they're not talking about the problems they have. They're talking about the challenges they have. And they're getting it out in a safe place. So they're not bottling it up and isn't coming out in this passive aggressive way that's hurting and impacting other people that they love. Because that's what happens. We hold on to these things that come out in ways that we don't want them to. Again, passive aggressive anger. Anger is the cover up for sadness, right? So it comes out that way. It comes out if we get sick, it comes out in diseases that might occur, right? And when you wake up at 4 a.m. and say, why am I wide awake? What is this that I'm thinking about? So it's a matter of reaching out and saying, who are the people that I trust that I can get vulnerable with? Who can hold that space for me, right? And if you don't have those direct people in your life right now, then do some research. There's hundreds, thousands of different men's organizations and groups. And yeah, some of them might be right for you and some of them may not. But it's a matter of getting into action and saying, this can't go on. I don't want this to go on anymore like this. It's time for a change. It's time for a shift. And that getting into action takes courage. And it's about taking care of you first and foremost. Put the oxygen mask on, take care of yourself, take care of, because like you said, this leadership that we have around this world right now, it's falling fast, right? It's not working. People are just fighting every step of the way to keep this old way of being. And like I mentioned earlier, I know there's a new type of leadership in store, right? Especially with this new world that we have. And it's coming from a place of truth, honesty, compassion, right? And that's where you're going to get the best out of your people, is when you can really dive into that. And I think that's modern masculinity, is really getting that, really understanding it.
And do you think, is there a real challenge in getting that message out more broadly, or do you think it is happening gradually now, slowly but steadily?
I think it's definitely happening. But there's some that they're going to always fight it, but you just have to decide what side you want to be on. Do you want to be in this place of just lying to yourself and not being the man or woman you were meant to be and living your true self? Or, do you want to step into that power? And it's just a matter of, again, getting real and saying, do I want to make this change? Instead of waiting for everybody else to do it, getting into that action and making it happen, for sure.
Amen to that. Let's talk psychedelic journey work. That is something that absolutely fascinates me. It's actually something that I've got fairly high up on my to-do list. So, I'd love you. I mean, there may well be people out there who are listening or watching this who don't even know what we're talking about when we say that. So can you give us a bit of a 101?
Sure.
And, like what happens, what the benefits are. And also, I think it's really important for people to be aware of how to access doing this kind of work in a safe way.
100%. Yes. So I'll just give you a bit of my backstory with this work and my wife as well. When I first got into this work, it was shown to me and provided by some trusted people that were doing a lot of this work and creating these journey groups that were all about growth and work. It wasn't about getting high or a party. It was all about growth and creating a sacred space to do this work in, right? And when I first when I first really got it, I remember I was lying there and I was like, I was connected to all. Like, I understood what spirituality truly was. It wasn't just about me. There was this expansiveness. There were these downloads of information that were coming through me, right, from the medicine, because the medicine, which was psilocybin at the time, has this intelligence to it that was just speaking and allowing this information to come through. So psilocybin is mushrooms are derived, the fruits of mycelium. Mycelium is what runs and connects all through the earth. So just to put a visual to it, if you ever saw Avatar, they would connect to the roots within the earth, within their planet, so to speak. Mycelium runs like that and connects all plants and creatures to plants in this entire earth. It's the oldest living organism on earth. What comes from that is mushrooms, or in this case, psilocybin, which is said to have this intelligence to it. And so what it really helps us do is break down this idea of ego, right? And get to the heart and the soul of who we are, and see that we are part of something much, much bigger. And so when I was laying there, and my wife and I, for the first time, we were like, oh my God, this is something that is extraordinary, that we were able to go back into our lives and talk about it for weeks after, about all the information and all the things that would come to us, that we were able to work on ourselves, and we were able to see the healing that would come through. That was one of the things when I was able to see my father for who he was for the first time, where she was able to forgive her mother on another time. I mean, there's hundreds of different things. And so I embarked on this journey that we would go to every, 3 or 4 months in these sacred places, spaces that were created so that we could all grow and connect and be the souls that we are today. And it's a continuous journey. And so, but like you said, a lot of people will get a hold of these and take it and be around energy that isn't necessarily the best energy for them.
Yeah.
And it could lead them down this path of not such a good experience.
Yeah.
So if I can recommend it, make sure that you have that safe, sacred space set for you. It's called set and setting. And that's how you want to potentially do this. And again, checking with your doctors or whatever, because here in the States, there's this organization called MAPS that's doing all this research, John Hopkins and all these others. It's talking about how it's helping with depression. It's helping with PTSD.
Yeah.
There's a lot of benefits to this particular plant, or these particular plants, that allows people to really work through certain things that they might have been burying. Because it's not necessarily we're going to just go out and get high. It's about, let's get into ourselves and look at those scary things, so that we are able to ultimately be free within ourselves. And this is just information. It's not the end all be all. It's the information that we get. And now we get to take that and integrate it. And I say integrate it into our lives, because that's the missing piece. If you're not integrating it, then it's just going to become this high that you get every so often.
Yeah.
So how do you take that and now move in? And I love working with people on the integration process of it as well.
Yeah. Right. That's where you come in as a coach. And so is it something that you continue to do every few months or a couple of times a year or something?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I think it's every quarter or twice a year.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get that refresh, and just the amazing sense of connection and love that comes out of it. Like every journey you do, some of them are very challenging, and some of them are extremely loving, and some of them are a mix of both.
Yeah.
So it's accepting that it is happening for you, that these are gifts that are coming through you. And no matter what happens, I've always felt that it was worth it, right? Because of the experience that you had. It's never walked away from a journey, not once, and said, I wish that didn't happen. There's always lessons that happen in the middle of it, that night after, the next week, the next month, because the intelligence of that medicine stays within your body as well.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, I mean, it's not about getting high. It's really about getting deep, isn't it?
That's well put. Very well put.
Yeah. So I did want to talk about breathwork and meditation as well, because that's something else that you coach. And it's something that is huge in my practice as well, and something that I'm always recommending to people that they do. So I guess, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all that that's something that you've gotten into, given everything else you've spoken about. But I suppose I'm interested to hear how you did come into it, and what style of meditation you are coaching people in.
So it was a very good lead in, by the way, because I was teaching meditation at a studio in Santa Monica, California, and they happened to offer breathwork. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to take this class and see what this is all about. In my very first class I took, I went, oh my God, this is something I have to teach, because it was the closest thing that came to what a plant medicine journey was all about for me. It brought me to that same sense of self, just using the breath without any ingesting anything. And so this is such a big part of me coaching right now, because it allows those barriers to be broken down, right? It's all about the disruption of the old habits. And again, yes, resistance might come up in breath work, but the flooding of the oxygen and the CO2 into the body allows the stuck emotions to come to the surface. And they say the issues are in the tissues. Well, this is a big piece of how we get to move that and how we get to work with it. And again, take the layers and the mask off. This is just one more tool. And I love bringing it to different workshop or retreats that I get to do. You know, we have some really heartfelt conversations and get real, and then we integrate the breath work into it. And the talking after and what people have got has just been story after story of mystical things or physical things or pain that's got released, or so many, and sometimes it's just been, oh, that felt nice and I just feel great. Every single breathwork session is different in experience, as a journey is too for plant medicine as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and then moving in, I was going to say meditation too is just this way of being calm and just aligned with yourself. So this is something, most of my clients do. I do a couple times a day, but just catching the thoughts that come through and being able to recenter yourself into that moment, into those sensations, and get very present allows you to get stronger every single time. And I think a lot of people say to themselves, they don't necessarily, I can't meditate, I have too many thoughts. Well, everybody has thoughts. We have 70,000 thoughts a day, right? And for you to go into a meditation, just say it's going to be perfect, right, is obscure, right? It's not. You're going to have these things that come through, but again, catching them every time you catch a thought and you bring yourself back to center, give yourself a little mini high five, because you just got stronger when you caught that thought. And the more we practice, the better, the deeper we can go. And the deeper we get to kind of connect to the soul, and we get to ask those questions, and those little downloads start to come in, and those answers, and we get to dip into our deep well of wisdom that's always there. And so you talked earlier about inner freedom. Inner freedom is about trusting what is already inside of you, that you have the answers internally. And we just have to go in and find those, or let those be unleashed. So.
Yeah. I mean, I always say to people that the practice of meditation is about the refocus. It's not about having an empty mind. As you said, we are not designed to have an empty mind, but
that's right.
The practice is the refocusing the self on whatever it is, on the breath, or the body, or whatever it is that your style of meditation you're doing. I wondered, I know you've got a free meditation on your website, which is fabulous, but I wondered if you could do a little mini tiny thing for us now, on your breath or something. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my favorite meditations, would you there's a free breathwork session that you can take. It's a half an hour breathwork on my website, chrisplourde.com. You all are welcome to that. But with meditation, I don't know if you want to just do a quick breathing exercise. We can do a box breathing, or if you want to do a visual of where we are, where we want to be. So it's completely up to you.
Yeah, well, if you've got the free breathwork, maybe the meditation would be a good one to do, if that's okay. But whatever works.
Yeah. Let's do it. That would be great. So, okay, this will probably be about a just 5-minute or so, 6-minute little meditation for us to kind of fall into. So you can start by just shutting your eyes. And maybe just taking a deep breath in through the nose and exhale through your mouth. Maybe another one a little bit deeper. Feel that breath go all the way into the belly and exhale through your mouth again. And maybe just one more as we go even deeper into the bottom of the belly, the legs, and exhale again. And then as we close our lips and let the breath just gently come through the nose, in and out. Maybe it's something you can feel or visualize, whatever makes sense to you, or even hear. And know that at any point you want to go back to that breathing, that is your compass, that is your center point, is bringing you back to present, bringing you back to the awareness of the breath. So as we bring our attention to the space between the eyebrows, we just feel our forehead relax and get supple. Our cheekbones, our jaw relaxes. Our neck, our shoulders drop. As we feel this energy moving down our arms into our fingers, as the fingers open up to the sky and we feel a little energy coming through. Back up through the arms, the upper back, up and down the spine. As we call these areas out, we just feel this release happen. Around the belly button, up to the heart space. And just notice if there's any armor around the heart that we want to release and let go. And if there is, just allow it to fall away and open up. And maybe there's a little energy that we feel them in the heart space swirling around. And just allow that to get bigger and move through the torso. And then back down into the hips, the legs, the knees, the calves, feet and toes. We just completely surrender and allow our body to relax as we go in. So as we move, we feel ourselves just kind of get lighter. And maybe we even start to float above our physical body. As we look down, we feel ourselves rising up to the sky a little more. Floating up a little higher, seeing the place where we were sitting or are sitting. Maybe as we get higher, the town that we live in, the city. As we move higher, our region, our communities, our country, as we float up through the clouds into the sky. Into space where we get weightless. We just picture ourselves. And then a snap happens. We are 1 year from today. We're going to fast forward into our future, 1 year from today. So as we come back down, notice where you're coming back down through the clouds. Are you still in that same town, in that same home? And if not, where have you moved to? Allow yourself to go there. Whether it's a different country, a different home. And wherever that is, allow yourself to just land softly on that front lawn or street. Then you see a door. As you walk up, you knock on that door. The door opens and you see you, a version of you, 1 year from today. Look into her eyes, his eyes. What have they learned? What do they look like? Are they happier? Does their light shine brighter? What lessons have they learned? What things have they gone through? What perspective shifts? How have they shifted their lives? As you get ready to leave, yourself hands you a gift. And that gift can come in any way, shape, or form. A gift your future self has just handed you. You thank him or her. You embrace. And you walk out. You take one look back. You start to float back up into the sky, into the clouds, gently into space. And just like that, we're back to present day. We come back down, again, floating gently, back to where we're sitting right now, into our bodies, into our hearts, into our souls. As we come in, we look at the gift that's on our desk, on our chair, on our laps. We open it up and we ask, what is that? Why? What did he or she give me? What was the purpose? What was the reason? What am I taking with me? And how am I going to get into massive action to get to that future self? When you're ready, start to rub your fingers, move your toes, breathe a little deeper. And in no rush, you can open your eyes. And there we are.
Come back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I was a little longer than 5 minutes. Sorry about that.
Not at all. It's wonderful. Thank you. So you did say your website, didn't you? Plourde.com. Is that
chrisplourde.com?
Yeah. Okay. And I'll obviously put links in the notes. Do you have any particular programs or services or offerings you want to tell people about?
Yeah, I'm currently working on a workshop series that should be coming out pretty soon. So amplify your life, about owning your story, releasing shame and guilt, putting up boundaries for ultimate success and happiness. So all of these things are, which allow us to kind of work on ourselves to get to where we should be or going to be. So just tools that will be able to get into that. You can always book a discovery call if coaching is something you want to explore. I'll have different groups that will be, forming over the next year that you can just touch back on my website. So lots of different ways to evolve, and, even different men's, we talked about men's organizations, but I know there are a variety of them even in Australia that I can give access to if that's something they're looking for. So,
yeah, great. That'd be wonderful. And with the workshops you mentioned, do they take place online?
Well, I'm working with a company right now that I might be doing them in live, but I will be recording them too. So they'll be able to have access virtually as well.
Yeah, wonderful. All right. Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you so much, Chris. It's been a really fascinating conversation. I really appreciate your time, and we'll put all the links to you in the notes. And all right. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
So nice to meet you, and thank you for having me on.
Okay, all right. Bye now.
Bye-bye.